You are live.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of We Are Dementia Strong. I'm Brian LeBlanc, and next to me is out of camera, but you could probably lean your head in. There she is. It's Maureen Rulison. And sorry for not broadcasting last week, but we were busy visiting the Smoky Mountains. And they asked us to come back sometime. So, you know, well, in my head, they did. So, but anyway, today we have a very special guest, and you're going to be surprised at what you will learn today. Her name is Lynn Principe Golden. Now, Lynn is a certified end-of-life doula. It's conscious dying educator, ceremony officiant, a licensed massage therapist, and a Reiki master.
Reiki.
Wow. Reiki, sorry. She's certified by and is current faculty of the Conscious Dying Institute of Boulder, Colorado, and holds a BFA. I'll ask her what that BFA is about later. Lynn is passionate about end-of-life planning and providing a calming, caring presence at the bedside. She believes that death is a sacred rite of passage and should be treated as such. Lynn is a trained public speaker, available for talks and workshops, and is also a funeral/celebration of life planner and officiant. She resides in Dunedin, Florida, in the Tampa Bay area. So, Lynn, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Brian. Good morning, Maureen. Good to see you both again.
Likewise.
You as well. Okay, what is the BFA? What does that stand for?
Bachelor's in Fine Art.
Ah, okay.
So I spent the first 20 years or so of my adult life working as a painter.
Oh, okay. Do you still paint?
I do sometimes. I do.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a similar energy that I use painting that I do with other things. I know sometimes it sounds like I'm all over the place, but I've realized that it's really the same energy.
Yeah.
I do still paint. Yes.
Okay. So let's get into the questions here. And as usual, if any of you have questions, please feel free to type your question in the
Chat box.
the what?
Chat box.
Chat box. God, I'm off 1 week and I don't know what I'm doing.
Really? You think that just happened this week?
Yeah, I was just trying to make small talk. Okay. So question number 1 is, what services does an end-of-life doula provide?
An end-of-life doula, I'll first say that it's a non-medical profession. So we leave the medical work to those that are trained professionally at that. We do provide comfort care to people who are going through the dying process and provide support for their families. There are 3 parts to what, at least what I do as a doula. The first part is helping people figure out what's important to them in completion for the end of their lives. So there's a coaching part of it. So we work with people, and it goes beyond advanced directives, honestly. So we might talk about those things and make sure those are in place, but we also help people understanding what feels incomplete for them emotionally, spiritually, physically. Maybe there are some legacy projects that are incomplete. And we have conversations that I think are difficult for most. Honestly, I feel like we live in a death denial culture. You know, people often say, you know, if I die rather than when I die. So we help to initiate difficult conversations, and that's part of what a doula does. The other part is having that bedside time and sitting bedside, and the bedside vigil being very important. We believe that sacred dying is possible just as birth is sacred. So it's really the other bookend of life. And the third part is being there after death, perhaps providing grief support, that we help families to know what their options are. So there's this after death care piece of it as well.
That's very interesting. I like the part where you do the grief counseling, because you're basically taking care of their person and being with them as they go to wherever they go to, and then after it's over, then you give them comfort.
I think that's true, and often I find that I'm not a counselor per se, but having been at the bedside and understanding the mysteries and the process of dying, we can provide comfort to family members that maybe have never experienced that before, and just through our presence and our demeanor, that we can help them to be at the bedside in a different way, and then allowing them to understand that they can touch and that they can really be with their loved ones, rather than treating it as a medical event.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a difference. There's a book that I love, and I say this often. It's called Die Wise by Stephen Jenkinson, and he says that death is not a failure of medicine. And so treating it as something that can be sacred and consciously done, given that the person is dying where they want, with whom they want to be with, is surrounded by what they want, feeling complete. That really is what a conscious death could be.
And the book was Dying Wise by Stephen Jenkins?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how does working with an end-of-life doula support and ease the grief process?
Well, you can.
Okay. Looks like Lynn froze up.
Okay. Maybe we can add her back in, see if you can send her another invitation. Go back here. Add to stream.
I tried that.
Oh.
Nothing.
Nothing. There's her. Well, no.
Keep talking about something else, Brian. Or she's going to come back on.
Okay.
So you and I have met with Lynn personally.
Yes.
And we went out to a green burial site in Pasco County.
Right.
Where they do not allow you to be buried if you have been embalmed. They, of course, if you're cremated, but they bury you to become part of
the
earth again. And we were fortunate enough when we were there that a funeral was actually going on, and it was quite beautiful. It's out by Starkey Park for anybody that's in Pinellas, Pasco County. It's very beautiful. The people who own it, the person who owns it, is part of the Starkey family. And so she has dedicated these acres and acres to this site that is a cemetery, so that it will stay untouched and part of nature.
There she is.
There
you are.
So I filled the time telling them about the green burial site we went out to.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I think my connection's not that great. I'm sorry. So I was saying that when someone dies and you know that it's been on their terms and that they felt complete in all the areas of their lives, that leaves their loved ones knowing that they didn't have to second guess, what I think that the difficulty happens when we don't have these conversations and someone is dying or has died. The loved ones are really left second guessing that maybe we didn't make the right choices. Perhaps they decided to make aggressive treatment decisions because they wanted to try everything, thinking that, that's the only way to, to treat someone at the end of life, when perhaps that person wanted to die at home, without a lot of intervention. And they wouldn't know that unless they had the conversations. So having those conversations and knowing what they wanted and being on the same page, I feel like really helps the grieving process.
That's very good. So did that,
We're on number 3.
yeah, number 3. Okay. How important are the rituals at the end of life, and why? Why are they so important?
Yeah, I'm someone that I love ritual. Perhaps it's my 12 years of Catholic upbringing or education. I feel like ritual, even if it's something simple like lighting a candle, I feel like it creates a sacred space. For example, there's an anointing ritual that I like to do, and it was created by one of my mentors, Trish Rux, and it's a non-religious blessing of the body. And I found that a simple ritual of blessing the body, anointing the body with essential oils, and saying words of gratitude to each part of the body and what it's carried us through can be healing for those at the bedside. It can provide a sense of gratitude and relief for the person who is dying. And I've noticed that there can be a holding on that happens at the end, but once the ritual is done, there is almost like a relaxing into the body and helping them release themselves. That's just one example.
Is it comforting to them to do this ritual? And I'm sorry for interrupting you, but that's what it sounds very, very peaceful, that they can do a literal hands-on with the anointing and so forth, and it just makes it more peaceful.
I think you're right. I think it does make it peaceful. And often I'll have the conversation before we get to this point, making sure that's what they want. And I like to include family members as much as possible in ritual. I think often people don't know how to be at the bedside.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we know how to be. We just forgot. We forgot how to be with our dying people, or we don't have the confidence. We think that there's something more we should be doing. And so having a ritual and having people participate, they realize that they can be part of it. And like I said, it can be very healing. I've seen a lot of forgiveness happen at the bedside through ritual. And that's, like I said, healing for everyone in the room.
So we have a question from Linda.
Yeah. Melinda asks, is Lynn ever a part of hospice care?
That's a good question. My hope, and I think we'll talk about this a little bit more, doulas are growing. The doula field is growing. As of right now, at least in our area, hospice does not use doulas. And I know that's changing in other places, and I do hope that changes here as well. My dream is to have doulas on every hospice team. We are growing, like I said. I've noticed just through the teaching that I do that every cohort that comes along, there are more and more doulas that are in Florida. I'm working towards getting us all together so that we create a stronger community and that we can start to affect how we're looked at and how we're included in the process. As of right now, doulas are not part of any kind of Medicare reimbursement. We're private privately employed. So I think if that changes, we would be more included in hospice. So as of right now, we can work alongside hospice. And I think that we're a great bridge because there are, as much as hospice does, I think that there are pieces that they're not able to spend the time, or maybe the training's a little different than what a doula does. And so I think that we complement one another very well. What I do volunteer for hospice, but not as a doula. I do Reiki at the integrative medicine clinic, and I'll also sit bedside when needed for transitions.
So it seems like I just had a question. I just forgot
Go
it.
ahead and
So
I
yeah,
think question 4 goes right into what you
probably
Lynn was already
so.
saying.
Yes.
How do you see the role of end-of-life doulas evolving?
Well, I see it evolving already. I am part of a group of Florida doulas out of Gainesville. We call ourselves the Florida Doula Association. We're starting to get together more. We meet now on Zoom once a month. There are more of us than people realize, and my hope is that eventually, when I say I'm an end-of-life doula or a death doula, people don't say, "What is that?" They'll say, "Oh, great, that's wonderful." So I think having that piece of education already out there would be amazing, so that we can just get to the work of it. And what I do find is that I've had to learn how to talk about it in ways that I didn't realize I was going to. When I did my training, I had this image that I was going to become a doula, then come home, and I'd be at the bedside holding hands with the hospice nurses and the patient, and it would just be ideal. And what I realized is that there's a lot of education that needs to happen. People need to know that we're here and what we do. Because once people hear about what we do, 9 times out of 10, they'll say, "Oh, I can see the need for that." So it's just putting that out there, I think, is really important.
Something that you said a moment ago is how you are by the bedside. Or no, you said that the population of people here in Florida is that making more doulas available? Or I guess what I'm trying to say is most of the people that you serve would probably be of a senior age, but do you also do younger people, even children?
Yes, absolutely. Even children. Everyone dies, and we're not guaranteed to live to old age.
Right.
So I think that coming back to what we were talking about earlier is having these conversations. They could be happening from elementary school. We could start talking about these things so that it's not a taboo subject. I think that's a really important part of it. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, considering that many people living with dementia are
Mm-hmm.
not able to communicate, they're not able to communicate effectively at or during the last stages of the disease. So when should a person living with dementia begin working with an end-of-life doula? And I'm sorry for the noise in the background. They're weed eating or trimming the bushes.
No problem. I love that question.
Okay, sorry about that. He'll be done in a second, in a minute. Why don't you go yell at him?
Because he won't hear me. He's too loud.
So, okay, let me repeat the question. Considering that many persons living with dementia are not able to communicate effectively at or during the last stages of the disease, when should a person living with dementia begin working with an end-of-life doula?
That's a great question. I would love to work with people at the time of diagnosis, and their family members, so that we can advocate for them, knowing what they wanted. And like I said, knowing what they wanted physically, and we're talking about, medication, alternative medications. Where do you want to be? What do you want the space to look like, feel like, smell like? What do you want to be hearing? Who do you want there? Practical things. Where do you want your final resting place to be? Do you know all of your options? And we become a great resource, as you know, in that area. Spiritually, what feels unfinished for you? Is there a pursuit spiritually that you feel incomplete with? Emotionally, this is a big one. Do your relationships, are there any relationships that feel that forgiveness needs to take place? Someone that you need to forgive or ask forgiveness of? Anyone you want to reach out to, relationships you want to strengthen. And then the last piece is legacy work. How do you want to be remembered? What's given your life meaning? These are all the conversations that we could start having at the time of diagnosis. We have a program that I use through the Conscious Dying Institute called the Best 3 Months. So imagining that you have 3 months to live, what are the most important things in all these 5 domains? So talking with them about what's your vision and where are you now and what steps do you need to take to get to that vision, and helping them to create action steps. That's a big part of this work. And I can see that being especially important for someone with dementia. And beyond that, often a doula may come in well after that time has passed, and we can offer comforting care regardless. So there's that comforting care that can happen at the bedside, and then supporting the family. And again, like I said, providing those resources that we all need. We need to know what our options are. There are a lot more options than we realize.
Maureen and I have discussed a lot about dying and what's going to happen, with us and so forth. We're both going to be cremated because I don't know. It's just renting a space in the ground to, for decades. I want to, yeah, forever. We started learning about this, and we thought about becoming part of a plant or a tree, and just things of that nature.
Can I ask a question here?
Okay, sure.
Move over, buddy. So I'm sure this is the case with lots more people than just the care partners of persons living with dementia, but I know that I experience anticipatory grief.
Yes.
And I know that other care partners for persons living with dementia are experiencing that same thing, because we see little parts of the person we love going into hiding inside of them, where we can no longer reach out and touch them, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And I have heard and read many care partners talk about feeling guilty about a sense of relief when that person they love so dearly is no longer struggling. And I don't want to say suffering, but struggling. Mm-hmm. And that a lot of guilt goes along with feeling that. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if you've ever experienced that in your business.
Well, that's a great question. I think that one of the big pieces of the work that we do is conscious communication, because death is not prescriptive. It's always going to be different. I think being able to be a support and a listening ear without the need to fix. There's nothing I could say or do that could fix, or nor should I, because there's nothing wrong with you, with the way that you may feel about that. But being someone to have that conversation with, and without judgment, I think is a really important part of what we do as doulas, because your experience is not my experience, right? I'm not going through what you may be, or what a family member may be going through, and nor do I want to or can I fix that, but I can listen, and I can make sure that you know that you're being heard, and do that without judgment. And I think that's really an important piece to offer.
I've told Maureen more times than none that I don't want people grieving me as I progress with all that's going on up here.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, when my time comes, I want it to be more of a celebration. It's basically supposed to be a celebration of life, you know. And I'm not saying that I want people, you know, or if they want to drink, hey, more fun. But do you ever have or have you ever had a situation to where they want something like that? They want to have a celebration of that person's life, and you have friends and family.
So while the person is still alive.
Right. Do you do that? Or is that part of what you do?
That's part of my own death plan, is that I want to have a living funeral.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want that, coming from a big family, I want all the food, and I want all the people, I want the music and the dancing, and I want to be there to tell them goodbye and tell them I love them. I think that's the thing, that you can do it however you want to. There's no right or wrong here. And if that's what gives you peace, absolutely, I would be helping you organize it.
Yeah.
So for a person living with dementia, you'd want to do that party a long time before you were in the dying process, like next Tuesday for you, maybe.
Yeah, or monthly.
Oh.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah. Oh, so y'all can just go ahead and plan it for me. So
no, you just tell us what you want to do, and we'll pretend like we're listening.
Yes, I know. Quinn, I'm going to need your help. Okay.
Also, I don't want to ignore Karen's question.
Yeah.
What is the price range for doulas?
We're all different, Karen. Some of us work hourly. Some of us do packages. So, if you wanted to do, and it depends on your training as a doula. I think that we each have our own specialty. For myself, sitting bedside is the part that drives me the most. But I do love the coaching piece and creating funerals. So there are different skills that I have that maybe other doulas don't have, and vice versa. So it really depends on that individual doula. I know that most of us will work on a sliding scale because we believe this is something that everyone should have and deserves at the end of life. So that really will depend on your doula, and there's nothing wrong with asking them, that conversation. I know that for myself, I'm offering workshops where I'll work with a group of people, and they don't necessarily have to be actively dying. It's just knowing that we all will die someday, and having a workshop to help people create that, like I mentioned, that vision for each domain of life, and then action steps to get to that vision. And that's something I can do in a group with less than an individual. So most doulas will work with you with that.
You see, that's awesome, because I would much rather see people while I'm alive rather than them just, grieving that they weren't able to spend any time with me and now I'm gone. I don't want that. I want to tell everybody goodbye and, get hugs and all that kind of stuff. And then as I go along, I think that'll be a very satisfying thing that I would like to do. So
I'm so glad you said. I'm sorry.
Basically, what I'm hearing is that rather sooner than later, you should start interviewing death doulas to find who you match with personality and style wise. Quinn has just offered to bring the wine to Brian's living celebration, and I said I'll have Brian plan the music because that's his shtick. Yeah. And then Quinn does yoga, and Brian always tries to do yoga like Quinn does, but we can do yoga at your life celebration. And I hate saying that it's the end of life, because I believe life goes on after our physical body dies. I think my grandmother, who died at 103 years old, wanted hers to be a graduation ceremony. She graduated from this life to the next.
Right.
So
I love that. And I also use the word dying a lot, obviously, and dying process, just as a reference to, the work that I do. But I also love the idea that we're living up until the moment of death. And so the words dying maybe aren't always applicable. And I love that you brought that up too, because people ask me all the time about how sad this must be that this is the work that I do. And I have to say that, like you're saying, Brian, the more that I work with dying, the more that I live my life in ways that I may not have had I been avoiding the thought of dying. I think more about what really matters, and that's helped me to let go of things that don't serve me in this lifetime. And I think more about purpose. I think more about what I'm meant to do, and I practice living with more joy than I think I would had I not considered what the dying process is and what I would need to do to feel complete. So I think that's a beautiful example of what can happen if we prepare for the end while we still have this more time, and realizing that our more time is right now.
We do have one last question.
Sure.
And it's from our friend Quinn. It says, what are some good questions to ask a doula when interviewing?
That's a great question. I would ask, often we'll need to work with other doulas, so I would ask if you're looking for someone that's going to be there at the end. So we often will offer 3 days, 24 hours a day. So is that something they would offer? Maybe they have other expertise that they could bring to the table. I know doulas who do nails, or like me, I do massage. So I would add, that offering. Would you like massage? I know doulas that are also CNAs, so they could help with the body care. So really would just be asking them, first identifying what your needs are, and then asking if those are things that they would be able to provide. And if they aren't, maybe there are resources that they know of so that you get exactly what it is you're looking for.
One other question came in, and it says, we have donated our bodies, or it's a statement, we have donated our bodies to medical schools so that medical students can work with real bodies. Do you have that also, to where you're,
part of the protocol?
Part of the, yeah.
So being with someone as they die, knowing that their body is going to be donated?
Yeah.
Is that the question?
Yeah.
I think that being with someone can happen in any space. So we often think of, being in your own bed, or, looking out into a beautiful view. But even being in a hospital room, and which may be the case if you're donating your body, maybe you need to die in a hospital, because they'll want to monitor and make sure that, they immediately, can take you and put you where you need to be just for preservation, it can still be a beautiful, sacred event in a hospital. That's possible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This has been very enlightening, very educational. I've even learned some things. And
I'm so glad.
thank you.
I've even learned some.
I was thanking Lynn.
Okay.
Okay. But no, and judging from comments and questions and so forth, it's you're making a difference, and I think this is something that it takes is it sterility? Is that a good word? It takes that out of the traditional wake or funeral or things of that nature. It's very peaceful. I mean, I'm thinking about what it looks like. I've never been to one, but I could just see what it looks like, but then I can also feel what it's going to look like for me.
That's wonderful.
So it's good stuff. And I think that you are doing something for families and friends and so forth that without your services and others like you, maybe they want that traditional thing, but I'm hoping that it'll start going, in a different way.
Right. And I think that actually what we do is the traditional thing that we've gotten away from.
Yeah.
And I think that the more we educate and be with others through this process, maybe one day we won't need doulas. But until then, I feel like it's a privilege, and I'm really grateful to do what I do.
Well, we can't thank you enough for being here today. And we put your website in that box. So if you want to go look, please do so. And is there like a way for them to contact you?
Yes, there's a website, a contact that goes straight to my email. My phone number is there, so I'm happy to answer any more questions by email or phone. And I'd love it. This is obviously a subject that I love talking about, so I'm definitely open to hearing from anyone who wants to know more.
Well, thank you again, Lynn, for being with us today. And maybe we'll ask you back another time. If something new arises, let us know when we can do this again.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye, Lynn.
And thanks to everyone for joining us today. Be here next week.
Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers tomorrow.
I remember a priest in my parish. His name was Father McCallion, and he was from New York. And so every Mother's Day he would get up and he would say, "I want to wish all you mothers a happy Mother's Day." So happy Mother's Day to everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.